Hey everyone, you are listening to another episode of the All Things Private Practice podcast. I'm your host, Patrick.Casale, joined today with Victoria James. She is an LCSW psychotherapist, anxiety and mindset expert, wellness entrepreneur, and the founder of Evergrowth Counseling, surveying young professionals and entrepreneurs who are struggling with mental health challenges in New York, New Jersey, and Florida. Victoria is a member of the BIPOC community, born in a multiracial immigrant family, and provides support around issues related to racial and ethnic identity, challenges of being a first generation American and person of color. Um, I've been following your social media. I know you also do like an entrepreneurial mindset, empowerment, business coaching, and your story is a really cool one. And I'm excited for you to be on and share a little bit of it. So today, Victoria and I are going to talk about the topic you proposed was some of the struggles and the upbringing of going from homelessness to teen motherhood to becoming a successful entrepreneur. And I'm really just want to say thank you for being willing to share that story on here. And just thanks for coming on and making the time to do it.
Thank you for having me.
Is there anything I missed in your bio that you want to let the audience know about, or anything about you that feels really important to highlight?
I think you captured everything. My practice is mostly around helping overachievers manage their mental health challenges. I really enjoy working with very ambitious people, people that are interested in leaving a 9 to 5 and helping them cope with imposter syndrome, the anxieties and roadblocks that come with wanting to make changes. And especially when you come from an immigrant family, you come from a BIPOC family, or if you were raised in a family where business and entrepreneurship weren't really spoken about, those are some of the challenges that you experience. And when we go to college and when we go to grad school, and depending on what type of family you were raised in, there's no talks about business and other ways of making money other than applying for your next 9 to 5 job.
Right. So a lot of this is really breaking that mold of what was expected in terms of what the family system says I should do versus what I want to do and what I want more of. That's kind of the vibe I get from a lot of your content. And can you share a little bit about some of this your journey, because you share so openly, which I appreciate. I do the same, and I think that's really the stuff that is relatable when you're talking about some of the areas that you experienced a lot of struggle or a lot of pain and suffering in some ways. So share about anywhere you want to start in terms of going from homelessness to successful thriving entrepreneur, because I think this is a topic we haven't covered yet, and I think it's a really really important one and a really powerful one.
Okay. There's a lot of history, and I can start off sharing. I grew up without my parents. My mom was pretty much sick since I was born. I was raised by my grandmother. My family is from Jamaica, and I did get pregnant at 18, and I lived around being raised by extended family. And at the time I got pregnant, culturally, that's not really acceptable to have children outside of Whitlock, especially at 18 years old. So I pretty much got kicked outside of the house. My grandmother, who raised me, passed away a year after my son was born. So I pretty much was left stranded. And I had to move into a teen mom program at 18 when my son was a few months old. And from there, I stayed there for about a couple years. And I was in college at the same time. I had to bring my son to school with me. A lot of my classmates also knew my son. Wherever any place I went, he had to go. And life was pretty much hard since birth.
Yeah, that sounds like it had to be unbelievably challenging, and trying to juggle all of these roles and responsibilities simultaneously while putting yourself through school. That sounds like a lot.
It definitely was. From birth, I always felt this hypervigilance about what I needed to do to change circumstances. I always knew I would go to college. I always knew I would be in a helping profession. Initially, I thought that I would be a lawyer, because I was always told that I had a mouth on me. Always asserted myself. I was always known for not listening, and I just knew I was like different, and I wanted to change things. I never was one to accept things that were given to me and do as I was told. And, culturally, when you're coming from a Asian, West Indian background, children are seen, not heard. right? And especially being a woman, men were the head of the household back in the day. So I totally felt like, the outsider.
Yeah, I saw in your bio that you really enjoy helping the like quote unquote black sheep of the family. It sounds like some of that comes from some of that experience as well, I imagine.
Yes. Um, out of my grandmother had 8 kids, and out of 8 kids, my mom was pretty much the only one that got sick and couldn't raise her children. And then from there, I almost went into foster care. I was known as the little girl that never listened. And so it's like grew up as the problem. But then even throughout all of that, I knew I was going to go to college. I knew I was going to become something. I was always the daydreamer and the one that didn't listen. And that got me places.
Yeah, I imagine in like the familial system at home, it was that caused some issue, but then it's also served you in so many ways to be able to have that mindset and that mentality to push yourself, think bigger, think more creatively, think outside of the box. Can you share a little bit about like what was that like for you going into college, raising your son simultaneously, but also having these ambitions, having these dreams, like knowing I have to make this work.
I think so it was very challenging. I almost dropped out several times. I was failing in and out of my classes. Uh, it took me like I almost got a certificate program and quit outside of my bachelor's program. And it took like the admissions counselor seeing me there with my son speaking me out of it. And so I would drop out and drop back in. And every time I looked in my son's eyes, I remembered what I went through growing up without having. And I didn't want him to experience what I did. So I think that, when you think about the term generational cycle breaker, I knew that there's something that these were things that I had to go through and push myself through if I didn't want that to be my son's story when he grew up older.
That's powerful for sure. So just having that constant reminder right in front of you, like, I'm not going to allow this to happen. That
Right.
feels pretty damn powerful.
Yeah, you have to have like a burning desire. And it wasn't just about me, it was about this life that I brought into the world
Sure.
as well.
Absolutely. So fast forwarding a bit from that point in time, when did you decide, okay, not going to be a lawyer, probably going to end up being a therapist? How did that happen?
So while I was in college, financially, I just couldn't like work and go to school at the same time. On top of it, I was living in the shelter, and I wanted a way to be on my own and provide on my own while I still finished school. So I applied for public assistance, and at the time, with who was president at that time, they told me that they didn't pay for people to go to school. So I had to choose between staying in college or applying for public assistance, which would require me to work while I collected public assistance. So I walked out of the office and I was like, all right, I'm going to have to figure out another way. And so from there, I decided, this doesn't make any sense that, as a young mom, I don't want to be on public assistance for years. And if I didn't have like a bachelor's or a graduate degree, how much money could I potentially make without needing government assistance down the line? I was thinking 5, 10, 15 years away from that time, how well could I be living? I just decided that if I didn't go to college, that I feel like even if I would have collected public assistance, I don't know when the last time I would be able to step away from that and actually thrive financially. So I had to stay in college, and then I decided to change my major to social work. I wanted to be in a profession where I can make change. And then from there, during my studies, I got an internship in a psychiatric hospital. One of my first supervisors became a mentor to me, and from there, I got exposure to the mental health field.
That's cool. Once you got exposure to it and you were like, it sounds like that felt like a really good fit, just trying to make change and at a more micro level too, with your feet on the ground, because we see so many programs that just are not designed to be helpful for people. And Did you end up doing any community mental health after grad school, or did you go straight into private practice?
I did several years. I have over 15 years of experience working in almost every borough across the state of New York, from anywhere from children, family, adults, doing high risk level work. And I actually didn't know anything about private practice. And I got exposure from my mentor, but it's like I find myself, even though I got out of, I thought I got out of survival mode, but I always felt like I was still in it because in New York City, you have to make a certain amount of money to be somewhat comfortable.
For sure.
And especially when you have children, it's really hard to live. And even as a person that was a helper, I felt like I had some of the same issues of the clients that I was helping. I was struggling to pay my rent. And I just thought that, all right, I did the work. I went to grad school, I got a degree, and I still found, I just still felt like I was struggling financially. And struggling financially, it started to affect my mental health. Like I was working 9 to 5. I had to get a second job. I was away from my son, who was young at that time, because I had to work several hours just to live, and I still felt like I was always running out of money. So eventually, I got to the point where I didn't want to do that anymore. I wanted to be able to take vacation, actually pay for it. Not feel like I'm living paycheck to paycheck. And every job that I get, even though I moved upward, it still felt like it wasn't enough. And I just decided that, all right, for me to be comfortable, I wanted to have freedom. And for me to have freedom, I just have to be my own boss at this point. And that's exactly what happened.
Yeah. That's a great reminder because I think so many people are like, okay, I've got my master's, I go into this profession, whether I'm a clinician, whether I'm in middle management, and it's like I still can't survive. Like I still can't survive financially. I'm still not being able to get my needs met. How long have you been in private practice now since leaving community mental health?
It's been about 2.5 years now.
Cool. And fast forward us 2.5 years, kind of like where are we at today, leaving community mental health? Like, what's that look like for you on a day to day?
I feel much more happier. I make my own schedule. I feel like I'm living more life. It doesn't feel like work anymore. I get burnt out sometimes, but now I can actually afford to go on vacation and take vacation. I work virtually. I can pretty much bring my laptop anywhere and not fear loss of income. I'm in control of my income. If something doesn't work, I can change it. When I want to take off, I just take it. I don't have to ask anyone for it. I also work in a capacity that I like to work with the population that I like to work with. And I feel like a lot more secure. Like my security is not in anyone else's hands but my own.
I love that. I love that last part, especially because that mentality is so often what people actually fear, right? Is like, if I leave this quote unquote safe, secure job for a nonprofit, for a community mental health, for a group practice, whatever, and I go out on my own, then I have no security. But in reality, you have so much more control over your situation when that is the case. Have you found that to be the same for yourself?
Totally today. Most times I don't even set an alarm clock anymore. I go to the gym in the morning. Sometimes I do my grocery shopping at 10, 11 o'clock. I don't see my clients till later on this afternoon. And like, if I have like a Pilates or a workout class I want to go to, I could do that any time of the day. It's just so much more freedom and flexibility. And, even being from New York again, like everybody's in a rush to get somewhere. And now that I don't have to do that anymore, I don't feel that extra anxiety to rush and get to anywhere because like I make my own schedule. I give myself time in the morning. I can wake up and not feel like I have to rush into my workday. I can ease in and just do what works best for me.
Yeah, that alleviates so much stress when you get to kind of dictate your own circumstances. And it sounds like you knew for a long time, like, this is the direction and a trajectory that I want to go in. I want to move towards this. And you're now moving into like coaching as well, helping entrepreneurs like work through some of the mindset shifts, work through some of the mindset blockages that they have. where's that transition going? Because I think that's what happens for entrepreneurs is like iteration and iteration and iteration and evolution and evolution and evolution based on interests, based on goals, based on what makes sense for them this moment and this year.
Yeah, I find that there are many people who are high functioning and not necessarily have mental health issues where they need therapy and just need some supports around their goals.
Yeah.
And I find that I bring coaching into my therapy sessions. Most of my clientele are young 20 and 30-year-olds. And it's different. It's a different workforce now. No one really wants to work for other people. And, people are now working remotely. They want to do more influencing work. They want to work abroad and they want that freedom as well. And those are the clients that I really enjoy working with. So I decided to expand my services. And often online, when I'm posting and sharing a lot about my story, more times than not, I get inboxed about, how I can help them without doing therapy. So I'm hoping to launch coaching in the next couple of months.
That's awesome. And I mean, I see you posting a lot and posting consistently and sharing your story. And I think that's the side for people that a lot of people miss out on is just being authentic, being relatable, sharing some of your own journey, because that's the stuff that lands for other people. It's not the like logistical side of things. It's much more about knowing that I see myself in you in some ways. And if you are saying you can do it, then that means I can do it. And I think that inspires hope. That also kind of creates motivation to say things don't have to look a certain way all of the time in order to quote unquote be successful. And I think that feels really empowering.
Thank you. I totally agree. Because at one point, too, I thought that, you needed to have an excess amount of money to start a business. Everyone talks about having a business plan, but people plan to the point that they don't even start. And I honestly think that you get experience through doing.
Yep. I agree 100%. Do you think that is just massive amounts of perfectionism showing up when it's like, I have to have a business plan. I have to know all of the ins and outs. I have to have some like X amount of startup funding. In reality, I'm like, I don't think you need to have really any of this. I think you just need to learn how to get started.
I agree. I actually started while unemployed. I lost my job during the pandemic, and I actually took a boot camp on how to start a private practice a couple years before I actually started. And when I got my clinical license, I still sat on it because I thought that I didn't know enough.
Right.
And it took me being put in a position where, when I lost my job and I applied for other positions, the salaries just wasn't really speaking to me. I had to get to the point where I was like, you know what? I don't want to go back to that because I know that I'm going to last at that job for a year or two. I'm going to feel miserable again. So it's up to me to really change these circumstances. So I think that has to happen for a lot of people. You have to get to the point where you don't want anyone dictating to you, how you spend your time, what your worth is financially, when you can take off for vacation and how you can provide for your family. So it's up to your why.
Sounds like that's kind of been thematic throughout your life is like it's up to your why and really anchoring into like circumstances and trying to change them and making sure that you have control over your day to day and your livelihood and the things that bring you joy and things that inspire and spark your passion.
Totally agree. I just think that a lot of greatness comes out of things that you don't always have planned. And more times than not, it comes unexpected.
Yeah. I couldn't agree with that more. I think that is so true. And I think it also allows us to reframe perspective. Like if we can do a zoom out and a timeline from like where you start your journey and your story to now, it sounds like there has been tremendous growth, but there's also an appreciation in some ways of saying, like, I know what it's like to really fucking struggle. And now I know what it's like to also change that narrative and really shift that trajectory for my family and for myself.
Absolutely. Like they say, no pressure, no diamonds.
True story. Yeah.
Mhm.
So with that all being said, any any messages or takeaways for people who are listening who may feel like they're in similar situations or have experienced similar struggles from your perspective?
I would say To reframe failure. I think a lot of people don't take risks or don't bet on themselves because they don't want to fail. But success comes out of failure. If we're not failing at anything, like what are we really accomplishing? Right. I think the more that you fail and you learn and you recover, your success is how big you recover when you've gone through some losses, when you've gone through some L's.
I agree
And
100%. Yeah, I think we look at societally, we look at failure as like this negative word or this like dirty word that we shouldn't say. And in reality, it's like, how would we ever know success if we don't know failure? And how would we be able to differentiate between the two if we don't understand what it's like to fall down or to really struggle or to really stumble? Um, and I think it's really pivotal for entrepreneurs, especially to be okay with that word and normalize the fact that it's a part of the process. It's not a reflection of something you don't know how to do or something, a sense of self or character flaw. It's like, this is a part of the process if we want to get to where we're going. And being able to anchor into that is so freaking powerful. So I just want to really thank you for coming on and sharing a little bit about you and your story. And I know you mentioned you were nervous before we started recording. I hope it didn't feel that anxiety provoking. You did a great job and you have so much to offer people. I think those that you're helping and impacting by the way you show up is a really powerful thing. So I just really want to commend that and applaud that as well.
thank you. I appreciate you having me on.
Can you tell everyone where they can find more of you if they want to work with you in either a therapy or a coaching perspective?
My website is evergrowthcounseling.com. You can find me on Instagram at evergrowthcounseling and also on Facebook, Victoria James.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Victoria. And thank you for coming on. All of Victoria's information will be in the show notes for all of you. So you have easy access to that. Make sure to check her stuff out. It's really inspiring. It's really empowering. Doubt yourself, do it anyway. To everyone listening to the All Things Private Practice podcast, new episodes are out every single Saturday on all major platforms and YouTube. Like, download, subscribe, and share. We'll see you next week. Thanks, Victoria.
Thank you.